Brampton doctor accused of masterminding an illegal organ harvesting ring. Amit Kumar is at the center of an international investigation now. Global's Christina Stevens has the latest details.
No one comes to the door and the blinds are drawn at the Brampton home of Dr. Amit Kumar, the man dubbed Dr. Horror by India's media.
It's upsetting, yes.
Neighbors disturbed to find out Kumar is wanted on an international warrant, alleging he ran an organ trafficking ring in India, transplanting hundreds of kidneys obtained at gunpoint or by drugging the victims. But when here with his wife and 2 young children, they were the picture of normalcy.
You know, the kids play in the summertime, ride their bikes together and things like that.
Everybody know he is a doctor. He said, I'm a surgeon doctor.
Neighbors say the last time they saw Kumar was a couple of months ago, at which point he explained to them that he lives 6 months of the year here and the other 6 months in India. And there is another local connection. Investigators in India say Kumar's computer contained emails from Canadians inquiring about transplants.
It's easy to understand why people would be searching elsewhere other than Canada, knowing that Canada has one of the lowest organ donation rates in the world.
There are nearly 4,000 Canadians waiting for transplants, and the Trillium Gift of Life Network says many won't make it.
So that would lead people to look at other alternatives. But honestly, there is a legal and an ethical line that I think should not be crossed.
He says the only way to stop organ trafficking is for more people to become donors. Meanwhile, Interpol Ottawa confirms they are helping in the hunt for Kumar. Christina Stevens, Global News.
L'Ontario potrebbe diventare la prossima provincia che rimborserà le persone che donano un rene o parte del fegato.
Il ministro della Sanità George Smitherman ha detto che l'Ontario potrebbe seguire l'esempio della British Columbia, che al presente sta attuando un progetto pilota che rimborsa ai donatori viventi fino a $5.500 per le spese cui vanno incontro, come alloggio, viaggi, pasti e perdita di reddito durante il periodo della donazione.
The real numbers, the real opportunity is in what we can do to support those people who are willing to give this really beautiful, beautiful gift of life in the form of either sharing a kidney or part of their liver.
In Ontario circa 1.700 pazienti sono attualmente in attesa di trapianti. John Tory ha detto che il governo dovrebbe adottare il disegno di legge presentato dai conservatori per l'assenso della donazione degli organi al rinnovo della patente di guida.
I think Mr. Cleese has a very excellent piece of legislation in front of the House which would say before you can sign up for your driver's license you have to fill out a yes or no on whether you would donate. You just have to answer the question. And I think that's a good way of perhaps getting more people to participate voluntarily.
Il rimborso delle spese ai donatori viventi è un passo nella giusta direzione, ha detto George Marcello, che ha subito 2 volte il trapianto del fegato e da anni si batte per il presunto consenso per la donazione degli organi.
There's many people that were stepping up to wanting to become organ donors, and then they found out that there was a huge expense involved in becoming a live donor. And so this so greatly, addressed that need.
La Trillium Gift of Life Network ha detto che lo scorso anno quasi 300 persone hanno donato parte del fegato o un rene. Il ministro della Sanità George Smitherman ha detto che fra qualche settimana sarà presentato il rapporto sulla donazione degli organi stilato da un'apposita commissione che indicherà al governo le linee da seguire.
Says it may start covering the costs of living donors, and even the opposition thinks it's a good idea. Our Queen's Park correspondent Sean Mallon explains.
Twice, George Marcello had to go through the life and death stress of waiting for a liver donor. Twice, one was found. But along the way, he needed to know that everyone was searching everywhere.
And to ensure that everything possible is being done.
The process turned him into an activist, campaigning for improvements to Ontario's inadequate rate of organ donations. He says the current government has done too much studying, not enough acting.
They haven't really moved the ball forward from the scrimmage line from where it was concerning organ donations.
Now an idea that Marcello's been pushing is getting serious consideration to pay living donors to cover their costs. Someone who donates a kidney or part of a liver can run up thousands of dollars in lost salary, not to mention travel and accommodation expenses.
Supporting more people through living donations seems to be one of those ways that we can actually give more of those people hope.
British Columbia has a pilot program that pays living donors up to $5,500. The health minister has just been handed a report on how to improve the rate of donations here, and it sounds like the BC model could be coming to Ontario.
I think that's going to be a substantial part of the report that's going to come forward.
The opposition says it's a good idea, but accuse the Liberals of dragging their feet on the issue.
They failed people in Ontario. One person dies every 3 days on this waiting list.
Last year saw a record number of organ and tissue donations in Ontario, but all agree that the numbers aren't nearly good enough. More than 1,700 men, women, and children continue to languish on waiting lists. For Global News, this is Sean Mallon reporting.
Well, the Toronto Maple Leafs, of course, failed in the battle to make the playoffs.
Nonostante la lunga lista di attesa per ottenere un trapianto di organi, la serie di udienze pubbliche sul trapianto di organi si sta rivelando un fallimento. L'interesse è scarso e la commissione incaricata di vagliare le opinioni del pubblico deve ora utilizzare focus groups, pagando i partecipanti. L'iniziativa ha riacceso il dibattito della donazione di organi.
La commissione del governo del costo di $1 milione paga $50 a testa alle persone per dare il proprio parere sulla donazione di organi. George Marcello ha detto che è uno spreco di denaro.
We have offered our report over the past 8 years. They know clearly what the issues are.
George Marcello, che ha ricevuto 2 trapianti di fegato, chiede al governo dell'Ontario di adottare il modello del presunto consenso per la donazione, già in vigore in 20 nazioni europee, tra cui l'Italia.
Which means that overwhelmingly Ontarians would favor a system where everybody would be registered as organ donors unless they opted out, and that would dramatically increase the rate of organ donations.
In Ontario quasi 1.800 persone sono nella lista d'attesa dei trapianti, molti non arrivano a ricevere il dono della vita.
It's a 7 to 10 year waiting list for a kidney, and people die on the waiting list right now waiting for organs, and I think that once they understand that and realize that they will, in all good conscience, take action that is necessary.
La Kidney Foundation of Canada è contraria alla donazione automatica ed opta per l'espressa volontà delle persone a donare organi al momento del rinnovo della patente di guida. La Commissione presenterà a marzo le sue raccomandazioni al governo dell'Ontario, che si presume adotterà norme per migliorare la disponibilità di organi in questa provincia. Enzo Di Mauro, Omni News.
Un operaio delle costruzioni edili è rimasto oggi vittima del lavoro in un cantiere nel West End di Toronto. Il tragico...
On this next segment, we're talking about organ donations with my guest, George Marcello. Thanks for being with me,
Thank you for having
George. But before we begin, I want to show you the story I filed on the proposal you have to improve donation rates. Let's have a look at that.
It's easy to understand why George Marcello is passionate about the cause of organ donations. 10 years ago, he was within a couple of days of dying before a liver became available for a transplant that saved his life.
Do we want to solve this issue or don't we? Because it's solvable.
What needs to be solved is the chronic shortage of available organs in Canada. He's pushing an idea that was first tried in Spain and has now spread to 21 other countries, mainly in Europe. It's called presumed consent, meaning the government passes a law saying that everyone is considered a donor unless they specifically opt out. Think of it as a kind of negative option billing, only with profound consequences. Marcello says it has helped give Spain among the highest rates of organ donation in the world. An opposition MPP has introduced a private member's bill calling for presumed consent in Ontario, and Marcello would like this province to be the first in Canada to adopt it.
You know, it's working in 22 countries. That's got to give us enough initiative or enough, you know, to let's try it over here.
The job of the Trillium Gift of Life Network is to get more donors, but they're looking at other ideas. This fall, legislation is expected to come into force that would require hospitals to report potential donors.
We have tremendous plans here at Trillium that can improve the situation dramatically without curtailing a right to society.
This bioethicist believes that despite the worthy goal, presumed consent would be a hard sell in Canada and could be challenged under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
I think a lot of organs would be taken from people that really would not have wanted it to have happened. And we can judge them all we want, but it is their bodies and the bodies of their loved ones.
Okay, so that sets up the issue for you, George. And since the time I filed that report, as you well know, both Trillium and the Premier himself have said that presumed consent is not coming to Ontario. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, we weren't happy with the decision. And right after the decision was made, we sent out our own press release challenging both the decision that the Trillium made and the statement that the Premier made, saying that Ontarians wouldn't go for this.
Well, I think you, as you saw with the bioethicist there, a lot of people have concerns about Charter of Rights issues. What's your response to that?
Well, I would encourage the gentleman to look at our present system and see how that affects our Charter of Rights, because you and I, even though we want to donate our organs right now, our family members have the right to veto it. So where does that fall in the Charter of Rights? And also, if we balance this out in our present system, because so many family members have vetoed the decision because they're asked at a very difficult time, we're losing a lot of organs and lives are getting lost. If we had the other way around, it would balance out that more lives would be saved. So the person that wasn't able to get their name off the presumed consent list, what would happen is a life would get saved. So let's really balance that out and then really look at the priorities. It's all about saving lives, and that's what we're looking at. How badly do we want to save lives here in this country?
And nobody can dispute the great need for more organs, but it's an awfully sensitive topic. I mean, we use the words negative option, as so negative option billing was the old thing from cable television. And I guess it trivializes it in a way, but it does pretty much sum up what it is, does it not? And people have had such a hostile reaction to negative option billing when it's just cable. Mm-hmm. But if it's negative option to give your organ after dying, don't you think people would object?
We're hoping that those names can change. We're hoping, because it doesn't entail anything negative about the system. It's all positive. We're hoping that the first thing we can do is change the language in all this, because it does, at first hearing, it does leave a negative connotation. But this is the other thing I wanted to say about the decision that was made in this statement in particular. What we're challenging is the basis of how they retrieved the information to make that decision. We're challenging their research against ours, and ours, in comparison, overwhelms their research.
We'll give you an example of how it overwhelms it.
Well, for the past 8 years, we've gone into 100 communities throughout Ontario, and we've talked to people from all walks of life, from schools to old age homes to just the person on the street. We have almost like a direct contact with the people of Ontario. So what we're going to be basing our report, which is going to be coming out very soon, will be on an 8-year research and from 100 communities. In comparison to theirs is very, very, it doesn't even come close to the type of research that we did. So that's the first thing that we're going to...
Let me just stop you with that one then and pursue that more. In those 100 communities, did you raise the issue to say that unless you sign a paper specifically saying you do not want to be an organ donor, you will be an organ donor? Did you specifically tell people that?
Yes, we did.
And the response was?
The response, what are we waiting for? Let's get this system on board. There's almost 2,000 people in Ontario. The quicker we would have had this system in place, the more lives that would have gotten saved. And that's why I went to Europe, Sean, to bring back a comprehensive report on how countries that already utilized this system, how effectively it was working there, and to bring back, because these countries went through the same thing that we're going through right now. There was a lot of debate, a lot of dialogue, a lot of people that were saying, well, we don't want the state to own our organs, and all. You know, there was that going on. But as soon as they start making the steps and changing the system over there, the whole country seemed to gravitate and accept the system. And just like seatbelts and helmets, we went through the same thing with that, and there's no smoking thing. So.
But do they have, in Spain, for example, do they have something like a Charter of Rights where someone could challenge it on a constitutional basis? Because you'd have to believe that somebody's going to want to challenge it.
Absolutely. We want to get as much dialogue and debate out there as possible. We're not looking to force our opinion or anything. It's not going to be what this is going to be based on. We're looking for an Ontario voice. So right after we send in our report, what we want to do is do a comprehensive survey right across Canada to get a true Ontario voice. But they need to hear both sides of the story, Sean. And if they're just hearing one side, they can only make up their mind on what they're hearing. So it's very important that you know, they hear the whole story, the whole picture, and I'm sure that an educated and informed Ontario will make the right choice. And why we're saying that we're confident that they're going to go with this, it's based on 8 years of research that we've have compiled.
Let me ask you about what the province is doing. They're talking about being more aggressive in terms of identifying donors in hospitals, requiring hospitals to report potential donors. What do you make of that? Can that be very effective?
We supported that, but what we're saying, that's no giant leap. That's only a baby step. Why just stop there? Like, let's maximize the potential. Let's do everything possible. It doesn't just include the presumed consent model, because what I feel personally is that if we did exactly what Spain did, that would probably work here effectively if Ontarians supported that, because there's still the family members that could be approached, but they're more accepting of it at that time, and there's experts that are chosen to talk to the family that know how to deal with the sensitive matter.
We have to do a lot better in terms of how to approach the grieving relatives.
Exactly. So there's that, and then we also aren't utilizing the heart donations here, which would statistics have shown would increase anywhere between 20 and 30% of our rate. And there's you know, we need more retrieval centers. There's a lot more that we can do to maximize the potential of organs. But what we need to do first is realize that this issue does need more attention than it presently has been given, more priority. It needs to be one of the #1 health issues. There's 2,000 people here in Ontario that are depending on our government, on us to do the right thing. There's countries that have developed perfect system. Spain had recently shown a 92% success rate for people that are on the waiting list in getting their organs, and they're shooting for 100, Sean. Why can't we do the same here?
Okay, just a couple seconds left. Just a quick answer. I know you wanted to get a chance to talk to the Premier directly about this debate on this. Any response on that yet?
No, I haven't gotten any response. Premier McGuinty, this would be good for you, good for us, good for Ontarians. Let's hear what Ontarians really think about this. Let's have this debate.
Okay, thanks very much, George Marcello. Appreciate you coming in. Fascinating topic.
Thank you, Sean.
Okay, and still ahead, our play of the week. Stay with us.
Marcello ha ricevuto il più bel regalo del suo 50° compleanno, un fegato nuovo che gli permetterà di vivere. Il trapianto dell'organo è stato eseguito oggi con successo da una equipe di medici del Toronto General Hospital con a capo il professor Catrell. Familiari ed amici hanno atteso con ansia l'esito del delicato intervento chirurgico durato quasi 10 ore.
This is a long procedure and we're probably halfway through it now. And our thoughts and prayers are with him right now.
Era nervoso, c'aveva un po' di paura, ma il spirito era su.
Il primo pensiero di George quando ieri ha appreso che era disponibile l'organo al trapianto è stato rivolto alla famiglia che ha perduto la persona cara.
He reminded me that this was a time to keep the family who was in mourning because they had lost a loved one, and he was more concerned about praying for them than himself receiving the organ. This is George.
Fondatore di Step by Step, George Marcello, da quando 10 anni fa fu sottoposto al primo trapianto del fegato, è impegnato in una campagna per far cambiare le leggi del Canada sulla donazione di organi. Recentemente ha compiuto un tour in vari paesi europei per raccogliere informazioni da sottoporre al governo canadese al fine di facilitare le donazioni di organi e salvare vite umane.
It's my passion. It's why I'm living. It's why I'm living. Somebody gave me a gift 10 years ago to live. I wanted to give back my way.
Giorgio Marcello ci ha detto che ha un grande desiderio di vivere per continuare a dare speranza a chi ha bisogno di un organo e per continuare la sua lotta per far cambiare le leggi canadesi sulla donazione di organi. Enzo Di Mauro, Omni News.
La donazione di organi per far fronte alla grave crisi in Ontario organizzata dal Toronto General Hospital, l'University Health Network ed il Trillium Gift of Life Network.
L'80% degli abitanti dell'Ontario è d'accordo nel donare gli organi, ma purtroppo il tasso di donazioni della nostra provincia è ancora molto più basso che negli Stati Uniti e alcuni paesi europei come Spagna e Italia. Per discutere di questo problema si sono riuniti oggi oltre 200 esperti e addetti ai lavori canadesi e americani.
The plan after this meeting today is that we will collate the data that we're collecting. You know that we're asking pointed questions of the audience. We're also going to interview people and we'll develop what we believe is a rational action plan for improving organ donation. We have the commitment of the ministry.
È ormai provato che i trapianti funzionano e non si tratta più di un esperimento.
It's not that I think that the people of Ontario are any less giving or generous than people anywhere else. I think it's a matter of convincing them of the value of transplantation and convincing them that not only can they benefit other members of their family or their friends, but they can benefit all of us through their generosity at a time of incredible tragedy.
Il 9 maggio al Columbus Center alle 13 è previsto un incontro pubblico alla presenza di 4 MPP dell'Ontario organizzato da George Marcello.
When I got my life saved, I didn't know how to say thank you in a letter. So the way I'm saying thank you is by walking across Canada and to try and do whatever I can to help.
Questo problema per cui George Marcello si sta battendo da almeno 7 anni insieme ad altri, appoggiato dai media italiani, in prima linea Omni Television, è stato finalmente riconosciuto come tale. Attualmente ci sono circa 2000 persone in Ontario in attesa di un trapianto. Alcune centinaia sono morte lo scorso anno proprio per mancanza di donatori.
Focus Ontario with Sean Mallon.
George Marcello, 2 mesi dopo il secondo trapianto di fegato che gli ha dato la vita, ritorna nella palestra messa a disposizione dal Columbus Center per prepararsi fisicamente e mentalmente alla nuova sfida al governo dell'Ontario, che ha rigettato la sua proposta di cambiare le leggi sulla donazione di organi.
We want to challenge their research on how they arrived at that decision with our research. And as I mentioned, we have 8 years of travels throughout over 100 communities in Ontario.
La settimana scorsa il governo dell'Ontario ha detto no al consenso presunto proposto da George Marcello, che metterebbe automaticamente le persone dell'Ontario nella lista dei donatori di organi, a meno che non avessero dichiarato espressamente di non volere donare gli organi dopo la morte. Trillium Gift Life Network, l'ente proposto alla donazione degli organi in Ontario, ha detto di aver esaminato la pratica seguita in 25 nazioni che usano il consenso presunto ed ha accertato che, a parte qualche eccezione, che i chirurghi chiedono il parere della famiglia prima di prelevare un organo da una persona deceduta. Il deputato liberale Mario Racco ha ribadito la posizione del governo.
Noi siamo del parere che il popolo deve consentire alla donazione e che deve essere chiaro che consenta. Là è la differenza di opinione. Chiaramente noi siamo in favore che il popolo doni quando vuole e quando può, perché è un beneficio per il popolo.
Ma George Marcello non si arrende, intende avviare una campagna di sensibilizzazione in Ontario e in tutto il Canada e la produzione di un documentario per sensibilizzare l'opinione pubblica sulla delicata questione della donazione di organi. Intanto comincia ad arrivare qualche donazione. Carlo Viola della Vaughan Business Exchange ha presentato oggi un assegno di $4.000 raccolti con un torneo di golf per la campagna Step by Step di George Marcello. Enzo Di Mauro, Omni News.
The move to allow such donations came after a family asked that their daughter, Sarah Beth, be allowed to fulfill her wish to become an organ donor.
Donation after cardiac death, as Dr. Joe pointed out, makes it marks me as organ donation in this wonderful country. And that makes Sarah Beth a pioneer. Way to go,
Until now, transplant organs have been retrieved only from patients who have been declared brain dead. Currently, the new guidelines allow only kidney transplants from cardiac victims, but there are plans to expand the program. George George Marcello is with the Step by Step Organ Transplant Association. He joins us now from Toronto. Mr. Marcello, tell me about what you thought when you heard the news today about the fact that organ donation after cardiac death is now a go.
Well, of course I was very happy and pleased, but at the same time I was asking myself, what took so long? These recommendations were given to our provincial government over the years, the agencies directly involved, and this has taken years for it to develop. So I kind of asked the question, why did it take so long to happen?
Now you've had two...
To help them look forward to what they might do in the planning of the organ transplant system to best fulfill the needs of the people of Ontario. And we think that if we do that, we'll be able to make some difference going on in the future, which we hope will accelerate into future years. So if people are looking for how to engage, it helps us help our other citizens when they're in time of need. Thank you very much.
With many different diseases that are waiting for many organs. And awareness is one of the key issues. And hopefully this task force, if I may use that term, will address what is going through the minds of Ontarians as far as how they are coming to their decisions or lack thereof in this province. The Trillium Gift of Life Network has worked very hard to raise awareness with their celebrity campaign and also raising awareness in Ontario's hospitals. Driver's License Bureau.
And I'm the guy that's been in the trenches. I'm the guy who's been at the forefront. I'm the guy who's been challenging the government left and right. Is my name mentioned there once? No. You didn't hear Step by Step mentioned there once. Why? Why don't we ask the minister why my name wasn't mentioned there? Why wasn't Step by Step mentioned there? And what's going to happen with this committee? I hit this one. We're going to have 40 consultants. From 1999 to 2006, we talked to hundreds of thousands of people in Ontario. We've already done the research. What's all this about? They should have been making some movement on the opt-out, how every hospital was going to incorporate heart death donations, how we were going to look at possibly a national mandate in the provincial delivery system, how we were going to allocate millions of dollars for live donors. I didn't hear none of that. I heard some window dressing here today, and I'm not upset just because my name wasn't mentioned Step by Step, because I've been hearing the same bullshit for the last 8 years, and I'm tired of it, and so is Canadians, and especially the ones that are on the waiting list. So am I upset? Yes, I am. I'm upset because I wake up every morning thinking about what that person that's clinging on to life, what they're feeling, and I got to hear more bullshit here. This was supposed to be an announcement. Where's the announcement? I don't see no announcement. I see window dressing.
Why do you think that they're just announcing another thing?
To make it look good. A Liberal election's coming up. They got to say that they're doing something for organ donations. It's been in the forefront. I think that was acknowledged. Finally, this issue's getting some profile that it's supposed to. So from way back in 1999, why haven't we done better? Why has the ball been moved from the scrimmage line a few yards? We're not even close to the rear. So what's this going to do? I didn't hear anything about it. I've been involved in this for the last 8 years. I know what's going on with this. I didn't hear any positive steps here. And like I said, if Smitherman doesn't like that, I don't care. I said the same thing to Harris when he wasn't making any movement. I said the same thing to Chrétien when he wasn't moving on a national mandate. And I'll keep saying the same thing. I don't care.
Newsroom in Toronto. The News Hour with Leslie Roberts.
Good evening.
Don't take your life in your hands like that. Don't risk it.
It is a dire warning from Canadian doctors trying to put a stop to a new vacationing trend. It's called medical tourism. We'll fill you in coming up on the News Hour. Well, now to a new trend in vacationing, one that doesn't involve getting a tan on the beach, but heading to a foreign locale to go under the doctor's knife instead. As you can see, Christina Stevens is here. That was your story today, Christina.
Well, yes, and Leslie, the big question tonight is just how far would you go for surgery? These days, more and more people are heading halfway across the world. For a long time now, we've heard of people going to the U.S., but there's now a Canadian company that's advertising in Ontario to go right overseas.
And waiting for surgery, changing your lifestyle? Here is an option you
As waiting lists continue to head skyward, medical tourism has become the new buzzword, leaving the country for surgery and a vacation.
And rehab in an exclusive 5-star resort. Contact
Surgical Tourism Canada sends patients to a chain of hospitals in India, much cheaper than the U.S.
We're hoping to reduce the wait list on the one hand and help people that are really in pain.
But reaction is decidedly mixed.
Over the years, I've seen several patients with some really bad problems.
Dr. Peter Nelligan warns regulations vary widely among countries.
What constitutes a specialist may be very different than what constitutes a specialist here. I've seen one patient who had liposuction in Mexico who got infected and came back and ended up having to have major surgery here to treat the infection.
Both surgeries can happen anywhere, and the only way you can avoid that is by doing your due diligence, which is what we've done. We've made sure that we only go to the hospitals that have a good reputation.
And there are supporters. A liver transplant recipient, George Marcello, knows only too well what it's like to have your life hanging on a wait list. He says with all the restrictions in Canada, it's nearly impossible to do a live kidney or liver donation from a stranger, making it worth it to pay to go overseas.
This is an option that needs to be incorporated as we're still struggling with our shortage.
OHIP will pay for some out-of-country medical expenses, but you have to get permission before you go. And you have to show that either the procedure is not done here or that the wait for it is so long it would risk your health.
So who's most likely to head overseas?
There are younger adults in their 40s that have, orthopedic problems, but they're athletic and they don't want to wait 2 to 3 years.
Still, Dr. Nelligan insists if it's about waiting a while or saving money, it's not worth it.
Don't take your life in your hands like that. Don't risk it. If you want to save $1,000 on a car, fine. You can sell the car if it breaks down. You can't sell your face if it breaks down.
Now, he says part of the problem is in follow-up care. Consider that once you leave the hospital, you may not have access to that doctor or the same healthcare system as here. Now, if you're considering it, they say to make sure to ask what happens in the event of complication. Will you be covered for other emergency care when you're out of the country?
Lots of homework to do here. Now, the attraction, of course, is price, and it's cheaper, but how much and why?
Well, it's significantly cheaper. They're saying it's anywhere from half the price to a third of the price of the same surgery that would be done, say, in the U.S. or England, 2 countries that have the same kind of regulations as Canada. Now, apparently it's a better deal, mostly just because of the favorable exchange rates. They say the quality is just as good. It's the money just not worth as much. So
well, lots of caveats from doctors tonight.
Absolutely.
All right, Christina Stevens, thanks. Well, plastic surgery.
You could buy organs.
That's because donated organs are hard to come by in Canada. But now one man is campaigning to change all that. We'll have a full report. Also ahead, donation advocates are trying to get the province to make it a little easier for living donors to step in and help save lives. Our medical specialist, Christine Crosby, joins me now with more on the story. Christine.
Well, Carolyn, right now there are some 1,700 people waiting for an organ transplant here in Ontario. While most donations come from people who have died, there are some living donors willing to give a piece of themselves to save a life. But the costs involved sometimes make that impossible.
I have a 5-year-old.
His name is Bruce, and he wants a chance to save a life. A volunteer with Veteran Organ Donors International, he's offered part of his liver to save a child, but he was turned down.
After this little girl died back in March, I tried again, and the doctors at Toronto General just told me that Ontario doesn't have money set aside to do my testing and to pay my cost involved in donating.
Despite living here for 6 years, Bruce isn't a Canadian, so OHIP wouldn't cover his part of the surgery. Unrelated living donors are rare. Last spring, we learned about Kevin Gosling, who donated part of his liver to save the life of a child he'll never meet.
I don't think there's anything unique or special about me.
Medical expenses were paid, but Gosling missed 2 months of work and spent thousands on travel and other expenses. That's why organ donation advocate George Marcello wants the Ontario government to pick up the tab like they do in BC. Since last month, that province is reimbursing donors up to $5,500 per person for food, transportation, lost wages, and other expenses.
We are strongly urging the government to adopt the similar system, and we're asking them to allocate at least $1 million to put aside for this program.
Canada has a relatively low organ donor rate. About 14 people per million donate their organs after they die. Here you have to sign an organ donor card and tell your family. In countries where consent is presumed, the rate is much higher, closer to 30 per million. They don't need to have living donors.
People who need organ transplants can wait years until a suitable match becomes available. Some who have the means refuse to wait, like hepatitis C patient Richard Broadley.
I'm going to leave Canada and go to another country where you could buy organs.
Bruce believes more people would donate an organ if they had the financial support and knew the facts.
A lot of people think that you have to be dead to donate. A liver and bone marrow both regenerate itself rather quickly. And the risk is...
Amazingly, the liver actually grows back in just a few weeks, bone marrow too, and you can live well with just one kidney.
So, Christine, is there any chance Ontario will reimburse living donors for their expenses?
Well, that remains to be seen. Right now, the Health Ministry is waiting for a paper from the Trillium Gift of Life Foundation to hear their recommendations to increase organ donation. So it'll take some time before we hear whether Ontario will follow BC's example.
So we'll stay tuned. Thanks, Christine. And another group trying to raise awareness tonight, this one on domestic violence. A new study reveals millions of children around the world witness abuse at home. Here now is Christina Stevens with more on how UNICEF is helping those silent victims.
For many years now, but now there's a new plan to make it easier to save lives. Our medical specialist Christine Crosby has the story.
I have a 5-year-old.
His name is Bruce, and he wants a chance to save a life. A volunteer with Veteran Organ Donors International, he's offered part of his liver to save a child, but he was turned down.
After this little girl died back in March, I tried again, and the doctors at Toronto General just told me that Ontario doesn't have money set aside to do my testing and to pay my cost involved in donating.
Despite living here for 6 years, Bruce isn't a Canadian, so OHIP wouldn't cover his part of the surgery. Unrelated living donors are rare. Last spring, we learned about Kevin Gosling, who donated part of his liver to save the life of a child he'll never meet.
I don't think there's anything unique or special about me.
Medical expenses were paid, but Gosling missed 2 months of work and spent thousands on travel and other expenses. That's why organ donation advocate George Marcello wants the Ontario government to pick up the tab like they do in BC. Since last month, that province is reimbursing donors up to $5,500 per person for food, transportation, lost wages, and other expenses.
We are strongly urging the government to adopt the similar system. And we're asking him to allocate at least $1 million to put aside for this program.
Canada has a relatively low organ donor rate. About 14 people per million donate their organs after they die. Here you have to sign an organ donor card and tell your family. In countries where consent is presumed, the rate is much higher, closer to 30 per million. They don't need to have living donors.
People who need organ transplants can wait years until a suitable match becomes available. Some who have the means refuse to wait, like hepatitis C patient Richard Broadley.
I'm going to leave Canada and go to another country where you could buy organs.
Bruce believes more people would donate an organ if they had the financial support and knew the facts.
A lot of people think that you have to be dead to donate. A liver and bone marrow both regenerate itself rather quickly.
For Global News, this is Christine Crosby reporting.
Amazingly, liver and bone marrow actually grows back within a few weeks, and you can live well with just one kidney.
Ontario is launching a set of initiatives to fight online crimes against.
There are 433 people waiting for a new liver and over 1,000 waiting for a new kidney. George Marcello almost died waiting for his new liver. Now he's on a quest to get more Canadians to give the gift of life.
We need the province to look at this issue and deal with these issues of what's preventing people from becoming live donors.
Living donors can save the lives of people waiting for a new liver or a kidney, but right now most people only consider donating to a loved one. Marcello wants more strangers to consider donation. At a news conference today, he called on the Ontario government to set up a $1 million fund. It would cover the travel and accommodation costs of strangers who want to donate, like Bruce, an American citizen who wants to donate to Canadians in need.
I urge every Canadian out there to contact their MP, ask their MP to please set aside a fund, not to compensate the donors, but to at least cover their testing costs, their transportation costs, and any additional costs that come up that, people want to help.
But cost alone likely isn't the only reason strangers are reluctant to donate. There are risks with surgery, ranging from bleeding to a small risk of death, not to mention about 1 week in hospital and weeks of recovery. Still, Marcello hopes a fund would get more people to consider the idea. On July 1st, British Columbia approved a $300,000 fund to cover living donor expenses.
We are strongly urging the government to adopt the similar system,
to allow more of those waiting to get back to living. Right now, living donations among strangers are very rare. There's only been one done here in Ontario. If you want more information on becoming a live donor, check out our website at toronto.ctv.ca and click on Hot Links. With Lifetime, I'm Monica Mattis. Chris, it's back to you.
Thanks, Monica. When the Canadian Idol contestants take the stage next Monday night, they will
The government says it may start covering the costs of living donors, and even the opposition thinks it's a good idea. Our Queen's Park correspondent Sean Mallon explains.
Twice, George Marcello had to go through the life and death stress of waiting for a liver donor. Twice, one was found. But along the way, he needed to know that everyone was searching everywhere.
And to ensure that everything possible is being done.
The process turned him into an activist, campaigning for improvements to Ontario's inadequate rate of organ donations. He says the current government has done too much studying, not enough acting.
They haven't really moved the ball forward from the scrimmage line from where it was concerning organ donations.
Now an idea that Marcello's been pushing is getting serious consideration: to pay living donors to cover their costs. Someone who donates a kidney or part of a liver can run up thousands of dollars in lost salary, not to mention travel and accommodation expenses.
Supporting more people through living donations seems to be one of those ways that we can actually give more of those people hope.
British Columbia has a pilot program that pays living donors up to $5,500. The health minister has just been handed a report on how to improve the rate of donations here, and it sounds like the BC model could be coming to Ontario.
I think that's going to be a substantial part of the report that's going to come forward.
The opposition says it's a good idea, but accuse the Liberals of dragging their feet on the issue.
They failed people in Ontario. One person dies every 3 days on this waiting list.
Last year saw a record number of organ and tissue donations in Ontario, but all agree that the numbers aren't nearly good enough. More than 1,700 men, women, and children continue to languish on waiting lists. For Global News, this is Sean Mallon reporting.
Well, the Toronto Maple Leafs, of course, failed in the battle to make the playoffs.
L'Ontario potrebbe diventare la prossima provincia che rimborserà le persone che donano un rene o parte del fegato.
Il ministro della Sanità George Smitherman ha detto che l'Ontario potrebbe seguire l'esempio della British Columbia, che al presente sta attuando un progetto pilota che rimborsa ai donatori viventi fino a $5.500 per le spese cui vanno incontro, come alloggio, viaggi, pasti e perdita di reddito durante il periodo della donazione.
The real numbers, the real opportunity is in what we can do to support those people who are willing to give this really beautiful, beautiful gift of life in the form of either sharing a kidney or part of their liver.
In Ontario circa 1.700 pazienti sono attualmente in attesa di trapianti. John Tory ha detto che il governo dovrebbe adottare il disegno di legge presentato dai conservatori per l'assenso della donazione degli organi al rinnovo della patente di guida.
I think Mr. Cleese has a very excellent piece of legislation in front of the House which would say before you can sign up for your driver's license, you have to fill out a yes or no on whether you would donate. You just have to answer the question. And I think that's a good way of perhaps getting more people to participate voluntarily.
Il rimborso delle spese ai donatori viventi è un passo nella giusta direzione, ha detto George Marcello, che ha subito 2 volte il trapianto del fegato e da anni si batte per il presunto consenso per la donazione degli organi.
There's many people that were stepping up to wanting to become organ donors, and then they found out that there was a huge expense involved in becoming a live donor. And so this so greatly, addressed that need.
La Trillium Gift of Life Network ha detto che lo scorso anno quasi 300 persone hanno donato parte del fegato o un rene. Il ministro della Sanità George Smitherman ha detto che fra qualche settimana sarà presentato il rapporto sulla donazione degli organi stilato da un'apposita commissione che indicherà al governo le linee da seguire per la donazione degli organi nella provincia dell'Ontario. Da Queen's Park, Enzo Di Mauro, Omni News.